It's Gus, and there's a lot of topics to discuss, so apologies in advance for the length of this video. But first things first, it's the Siege event, and a lot of people are farming vouchers. And there's a lot of, you know, wives' tales about what works. And I don't know if there's a cooldown or swapping instances or whatever works. What I think works is just getting as many kills as you can so you can get more vouchers. So, what I like to do instead of just killing that one mob right there and then going to that mob and then going to that mob and then going to that mob is just group them up. So, get them all to come to you and you can use your artifact and mount power in your encounters and just kill them all really fast. And of course, this is build dependent and where you're at, but this is zoned, and so your build probably doesn't matter that much. Of course, we didn't get any vouchers, but we you just saw that was 16-ish enemies killed, much faster than doing one mob at a time. And I'll show you again. So we're gonna go there, and we're gonna go there, and then we're gonna go there, and then they're gonna all come to you, and then you can kill them with your encounters really fast. And I know every class has different powers and stuff. HRs are okay at AoE. I mean, we're not the best. We definitely could be worse, so I'm not complaining one bit. But I imagine most classes have something they can use. And look at that. 15 enemies, no scroll or no vouchers, but that's okay. It's the more you kill, the more vouchers you'll get. It's just my strategy, and I'm not saying it's the best strategy, but it works. I'm on Today is day 2. Oh, good. We got our first stack of 99. Or a second stack, too. So, um, vouchers to a lot of people seem useless right now. And that's because so many guilds are maxed out. But the guilds that aren't maxed probably want to get to level 20. So they probably want these vouchers. And because they're level 20, they may not have as many members as they could have if they were level 20. So they're probably not getting as many vouchers as they want. So there are guilds, every single siege event, there are guilds that will pay for these vouchers. And that's okay because you're spending a lot of time farming them. And so why I'm doing them is, the cohorts for trading them to another guild is great. But what I mainly need them for is the guild marks. And why do we need guild marks? Well, explore charts are probably the most AD you can make in the game. But why I actually need them for playing is, let's see if I got one in here. I think I got a Ratatouille somewhere in here. Shit. Okay, here we go. One more left. So this guild food is really powerful, but you can't buy it in the auction house. You have to pay guild marks to get it. And 20,000 hit points and 4,000 stats might really help in the upcoming trial that most of us, unless you're on beta, because I believe the beta or Albar server has it, but hopefully it comes to preview soon. But generally speaking, you want to be as strong or healer, DPS, or tank wise as you possibly can for these trials. So these guild foods are going to be, I'm not going to say a necessity, but most people in the first couple of days are going to be using them until we figure them out because they add survivability and they help to the burn and they don't go away when you die, which is amazing because a lot of consumables do. So this is a great event. And the reason I like this event is all the other events in the game, the only way to really make big AD off of them is to farm them on all your alts. And it's so boring and so annoying swapping to all your tunes every day to do it. This event is purely single tune. I mean, I guess you could do it on multiple tunes, but I think it might be best just to do it on a solo tune. I do know there's some people doing the daily quest to get this box right here. Let's see if I can find this right there. There are, ooh, under 55k. I'll get it. So there are people farming for these boxes. I believe you can get one a day per tune for every day of the event. But I think these take too long. I think farming vouchers is probably more quicker. And this is the only time I'd recommend not using MC weapons because this is purely solo. And if you're built right, the world map, you can kill everything fast. But this event, you want to kill even faster. So I am going with a personal set, and I had to up my power because I'm usually running around 62% of power because I'm set up for the two auras and the raptors. So I had to take off the raptor and put on more power. Um, so big shout out! Holy shit, this is beautiful. So, Master Temple of Spider is a very hard dungeon. And I believe this because I get invited every single day to last bosses, which is cool for me sometimes, but it's unfortunate because y- just as within the last 7 days, I joined a run that had been over 6 hours. People are still really struggling in there, and I believe there's a lot of players who still haven't gotten in there. And I believe there's a lot of players who've gotten in there who've never completed. Master Temple of Spider is really hard. And this group, they're from the Russian server, and so sorry if I mispronounced your name, Mary Ilya. And Mary's group completed it in 12 minutes, 47 seconds. Holy shit, that's fast. I have not seen the run. When I spoke to them yesterday, they were still editing the video. If I had the link to it, I'll put it. If I get in the next day or two, I'll put it in the comments below so you can watch the video if you want. But 12 minutes 47 seconds. My guess was with the current state of the game, 12:30ish was about the fastest time possible. So of course, I could easily be wrong, but they're pushing that very close. That had been a flawless run with almost no mess ups. Way to go, guys! That's beautiful. Big shout out to y'all. They are not on the PS4 or the PC server or the Xbox server. I believe the Russian area has their own server. Oh, another one for 55K. Let me get that real quick. Um, the next thing on the list is okay. So there's a lot going on in the game right now. A lot coming up in the game. And so there's there's an issue, and I don't know if it's an issue. I don't know if it should be a main issue, but I don't get it. So, this game has a history of doing player requests that make the game worse for everybody. For example, scaling. Players ask for scaling to come. I don't think the majority of players enjoy scaling. But I do know players were asking, i.e., crying, i.e., begging, i.e., whining for scaling, believe it or not. And I don't know if they introduced scaling to appease those players, but it seemed very suspect because they happen to coincide very closely together. But it could be purely a coincidence. And we also know players have begged, like, we walk so slow right now. This is a snail's pace. We used to fly like faster than mounts. And I know there's still like two classes that can do it, but it's an extremely unrealistic goal to achieve. But it used to be very realistic. No consumables, you just go fast. And it was fun. And players begged for us to slow down. Begged. And so, guess what they did? They slowed us down to appease those people. But I don't think the majority of players enjoyed the nerf. I think they did it to appease the minority of players. Um, the Band of Air was nerfed. Players asked for the Band of Air to be nerfed. I don't know why still. Still to this day, I don't know why. The Band of Air was great, you know. And when they nerfed the Band of Air, I said, it doesn't bother me one bit. It doesn't hurt me. It hurts the people that I want to help that I won't be able to help anymore. And people are like, that's bullshit, Gus. They shouldn't be helped in the first place. Okay, you try being one of the biggest alliances in this game and not being a helpful person. I don't have that attitude. Every chance I can, if I will help them. But I said a couple things about the Band of Air Nerve. I said it will only slow down my runs by a couple seconds. Well, it did. An ancient dragon used to take 2 minutes and 55 seconds. Now it takes 3 minutes and 1 second. So we lost 6 seconds, 1.2 second per band of air in the group. I can live with losing 6 seconds. Um, I said it will only increase. It will only increase elitism in the game. People are like, no, if they get rid of it, it'll get rid of elitism. I'm like, no, it will be much more profound. And what do we see every day in Zone Chat? Hosting whatever, need a CW. Hosting whatever, need MC weapons. Hosting whatever, need a Raptor. Hosting whatever, need a ranged. All this bullshit. It existed before the ban era, but it's become much more prevalent from my observation. Could be wrong. So the Bandit Air nerf appeased a couple people, but it hurt a lot more people. And then you know, Tom is a very hard dungeon. People struggle in there for months, and they still do. And once we start figuring out and wiping it out and demolishing it and making it very easy, some players didn't like that, and they asked for Tom to be harder. Well, the problem is there's still a lot, and I would guess the majority of the game has not beat Tom. And when they're going into a really, really rough time. So if you ask for Tom to be made harder, is that for your own benefit? I don't think so. Because Tom, we don't need the game to make Tom hard. If you want it to be hard, just go in there with 3 players. Then it will be hard. You don't need the game to do that for you. So I think players are asking for Tom to be harder for another reason. Maybe a self centered reason. Maybe they wanted it to be hard so other players couldn't complete it. So they could possibly have some feeling of, I did something you can't do, or I can farm Tom weapons and control the market. I don't know the reason. But we didn't need Tom to be harder. We could make it hard on our own. All it did was made it harder on the people trying to learn that dungeon. So if you notice a trend here, these are all player requested issues for the game to make it worse on everybody else. And we just had something very similar happen in the game. And it happened with the enchants. Nobody's happy with these enchant changes, right? Nobody's happy, but it's inevitable. We haven't had new enchants in over a year, right? We haven't had insignia changes. We haven't had color changes. We haven't really had any syncs in this game at all. There's no progression. We are stuck. It has been stale. It's been monotonous. People say they're bored all the time. It needs to get shaken up. That's MMOs. You can't have the same build for 10 years. You got to progress. So they introduced a way to progress. Of course, people, you know, reacted. They reacted. I would say they maybe overreacted. So they said, whoa, 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 calm down. It's okay. We're going to give the community 2 options. We're going to change the enchants, but we're going to give you 2 options. Option one is we're going to increase the stats. Cool. Option two is we're going to increase the stats, increase your base damage, and increase your hit points. I know what I would pick, uh, but that's not what the community picked. The community, I say that in quotation marks because I don't get it still. I know I've bugged everybody on the major forums. Thank you guys. Thank you for putting up with me. Uh, why anybody would choose the worst of the two? Um, and I got some answers. And one of the most, I think, matter of fact points that was what I was thinking was that players who didn't want to invest new enchants wanted them to be as bad as possible so that the players who did invest in them wouldn't be too far ahead of them. So basically, they asked for the worst version for their own benefit. You notice this trend about when Neverwinter relies on the community to make decisions for them? uh, we've asked for stuff that they haven't listened to for years. We're asking for the strongholds to be great again. I don't think that's a personal request. I think that's a request to make the game good. Players have asked for loot to be great in dungeons. Well, we've been asking for years. We've been asking for bugs to get fixed, like the Pally Shield bug, the Jagged Dance Blade. Nope. But if the players request something that makes the game worse, it seems like they listen. So we got to come together and think of something that sounds like will make the game worse. So maybe they'll implement it because that's what just happened with these enchants. Um, unless unless the higher rating enchants are actually better than the higher rating, higher base damage and higher hit points. Maybe I did my math wrong. Maybe they're exactly the same. Um, I'm not saying I'm for or against the enchants. We know it was inevitable. I don't think they're expensive as I was thinking once I added them up. Um, it's just weird that when the community gets to make a decision for other members that benefits themselves and not everybody else. That's the trend I've noticed over the years. And it's an observation, nothing factual, could be purely coincidental every single time. So if you're buying squash soup in the auction house, you're going to go to squash and consumables, right? Type it in, go to buyout, and usually buy the cheapest one right here. Be very, very careful because this, hmm, hmm, okay, let me get one. This one, oh God, there's so many of these listed. This this squash soup and this squash soup look identical. They look exactly the same and they're priced almost identical. But this one is a 3% crit chance and 5% crit severity. This is the legacy squash soup that's not available in the game anymore. It has 2% less stats. And if you're going to the buyout, you might accidentally buy these lower ranked ones and you might be a little perturbed by that. So be careful when you buy squash soups in the auction house. There is so much going on in the game right now. We got Dungeon Delver's Delight (DDD). I usually look forward to it. I would actually be farming normal demo right now, unless I could get a really good demo master demo group together. Uh, the because the drops, they're the premium loot. I put that in quotation marks because we're still questioning that premium descriptive term. But you actually get more stuff when you do it during Dungeon Delver's Delight. It makes farming more profitable. But the problem is it's happening during the Siege event, so I had to pick one or the other. I picked Siege. I mean, you could do both half-ass, or you can go, all in on one, and I chose the Siege event. There is only a couple things that will pull me from here. I still gotta do my invoking. That's way too much AD not to do. And then this is the hard one. This is the one I'm torn upon. So um we got this battle pass, and if I get 730 more points, I can get this cold word. God dang, I don't know if I want to go away from the siege to do like these random queues to do it. Oh my God, I'm so torn. That's how much I love this siege event, and that's how much I hate random queues. So I'm very torn between the two, but I'm probably gonna finish it. But it's a decision. I can't believe we have it. But the one thing that I will do though is these things right here, the Reaper events, because these are usually a pretty good deal. I would argue most Reapers are faster than their normal version because these aren't scaled. So if you got a people with decent builds, you can fly through these. And not only do you get the normal crappy chest at the end, but you get a Reaper's Mark. And 30 of those get you a legendary account wide best in slot companion. These you cannot not do Reapers. They're that good. Well, it's a double seals event right now, so you get two Reaper marks for every one of these seals Reapers that you do. You can only do one a day though, per account. So if you go to your alt and try it, you won't get any extra. Let me go over here. So, the other day I made a video that I messed up on preservation awards. Sorry about that. Well, I made a video right afterwards and I jacked that up too. I had two problems. So, what I did is I opened up 12,855 mysterious fortunes. Well, there's a problem with opening up 12,855. It takes about an hour and 50 damn minutes. And PS4 our videos can only be an hour. So I had to delete that. And what I did is I recorded the last, stack, went to upload it, and I didn't have any volume turned on. I had myself muted. So I have a few here. I had to make spots because I'm getting full on potions. I don't want to sell those yet, so I had these ones too. But I opened up 12,855, and the reason I wanted to show that is what I found was there's 12 different scroll of fates, if I'm not mistaken. There's the riches, recovery, power, movement. What's the other one? Lifesteal, 6. Oh, that's 5. Glory, experience, deflect, defense, crit sev. Well, maybe awareness. I think there's 12. I might have miscounted. But what I found was the drop rates were almost identical. I got 12 stacks, plus or minus a couple here or there, onesies and twosies. It was identical. And the reason why that's important is some of these scroll of fates right now, they only come from the mysterious fortune. So if you go to miscellaneous, go to mysterious fortune, they come from these, and you can. Oh, I'm getting those. Um, so they're 1,500 each is the lowest. Oh, I'll get these. These 99s are way easier than the singles. So you get these during the winter festival, and you can get one a day for free. And all you had to do is look in the telescope, and you can get one per tune. So if you had 50 tunes, you could get 50 of these a day for 21 days. So you can do over 1,000. Well, if you open 1,000, you'll get about 120. If you're looking for like scroll of fate power, you'll get about 100. Wait, 80 of them. You'll get about 80 powers. Well, you will fly through the power ones if your build's around those. Yeah. uh, These, when you open the mysterious fortunes, you get these. And these are best in slot consumables. And the reason why they're best in slot is they're their own category of consumables. So you can use these with all your other consumables. And people will be like, I'm maxed on this. Well, unmax it. And then you can make room for these. And who knows about the next trial? Hopefully we find out soon, but it might be we defense might be something us DPS need. And the problem is you go through these like candy because every time you die, and if you play like me, you will die a lot. I play way too aggressive. If you die and you're built around these, you got to keep using these every time you die, and you'll just fly through them. So right now the economy has a lot because we just ended, last month. We just ended the event. But towards, like summer and fall, they start disappearing. And I'll tell you how much they start disappearing. If you go to consumables and type in movement, which is probably the funnest one out of them for sure. Oh, somebody, 10K. Oh my God. So these were 40K, 35 to 40K below the event. There was two of these a little bit ago, earlier today, that were like 10K. So somebody must have just bought them. They will go below 66K. Well, they should. But if you're opening the mysterious fortunes to get these, you got to open up approximately 12 of them to average one of these to drop. So if you open 12 at 1,500 each, that's like 18,000 if you buy them at 1,500. And it's a gamble, but now you know from the opening. Okay, if you open up 12,855, I I'm not a statistician, but I'm fairly confident that 12,855 is a really good sample size to get a really good understanding of the drop rates. And the drop rates were almost identical for each one of the scroll of fates. That's what I wanted to share. We also got something coming that is also, making people a little salty, and that is the companion rework. And the problem is, if you read the dev blog on the companion rework, it will probably really annoy you because it contradicts. It's very contradictive. They tell you one thing and then they tell you another thing multiple times in this statement. They're saying, they start off by their problem statement. Their problem statement, well, it's not called a problem statement, but it is the problem statement, is that there's a balance of DPS companions in the game. A problem of DPS balance in the game for companions. I would like to know what that is because I've never seen that. I don't even think that's an issue. I don't think that's a problem because arguably the most powerful companion in the game, barring one very, very rare outlier on one very specific class, arguably the best single target companion in the game is the pseudo dragon. one of the cheapest epic companions in the game. It's also free in the Reaper store that's account wide legendary status. So I don't know what the problem is with companion balance on damages. Somebody will undoubtedly say below how imbalanced they are, and I won't know what they're talking about. Maybe they're talking about the AoE companions. Well, the problem with AoE companions is AoE damage doesn't matter at all. How often have you ever seen in PE chat hosting MTOS need a DPS for the third mob after the bridge? Uh, Never. And I'm pretty sure the PC and Xbox folks have never seen that as well. I've never seen somebody asking for a DPS or a tank or healer on mobs. They're not an issue. It's the bosses that are an issue. And nobody's using Regis on the bosses. Some people used the succubus, but I don't know if that's optimal at all on the bosses. It does have a couple little pros, but generally, if you've seen all my videos, you've never probably seen anybody on a boss ever using succubus. It's so reducing companion damage, improving the balance between companions. When they say, does that mean the low tier ones like this one right here? Let's go to here. Let's go companions and let's go to shield. Let's go to her. The Abdar Shield Maiden, right? I think this one's 2 gold. We get this at the very beginning of the game. Are they going to make the Abdar Shield Maiden great again? Are they going to bring her up to par so there's balance between her and the Pseudo Dragon? Are they going to make it so the very first companion we get in the game is the best companion we'll need ever in the game and we have no progression? I don't think every MMO I think I've ever seen has progression. So if they're going to make the very first companion we get in the game the same as we're using an end game, then that takes away the progression and dumbs down the game. I don't know if that's healthy. I don't know if that's what they're saying in the statement because it's so confusing. What I think I do know is there's a lot of people who have a hard time logging in daily to play this game. And I think they're on the thin wire, and I think one small move will push them from quitting this game. And I believe messing with an issue that's not an issue could possibly make them quit. That's what I think. I might be wrong. I don't think it will attract more people either. Uh, if they're doing this just to spice up the economy to make it unstale, I get that. I'm all for that actually. I know a lot of people aren't, but if it's to shake it up, get the economy flowing again, get the game flowing, get people farming again, heck yeah. Um, but if it's to bring balance, I don't know where the balance discrepancy is unless you're comparing the Abdar Shield Maiden to the Pseudo Dragon. Uh, if we're talking about augments and strikers, well, I believe if I counted correctly on Raynor's Pocket Wiki, there's about 244 companions in the game, 30 of them which are augments. So there's 210 strikers, 30 augments. If they're going to bring balance, are they going to add another 180 augments to the game? So there's an equal amount of both. Are they going to make augments start attacking? I don't know what they mean by that. And they were very confusing in that statement. None of those obviously are probably what they meant, but I'm just trying to highlight how nobody can determine what they mean. People start thinking crazy thoughts like what I just said. Um, because they didn't even explain what they meant by the DPS, the companion DPS balance. That's so misleading because every companion has a different use. Of course, the tutor's going to do shitty damage, but nobody uses the tutor because of its shitty damage. They use it for its special effect. And there's a lot more companions in this game that have uses than I think they realize. Uh, so it would have been nice if they would have given us something much more clear and understandable so that people didn't start assuming the worst. Who am I? I could be wrong. Maybe that's a good thing. I know there was a shitload of gambling in the auction house. But what I think this does, and some of you may remember back from Mod 16, the combat rework. That's when they really changed the game. Everything was changed. Every single class in this game had all their powers changed. Everything in this game was changed. I loved it. I was all for it. I know most people don't agree with me, but I think it made the game was still just as fun. It didn't affect me one bit. But a lot of people were upset. A lot of people said they were going to quit. I don't know if they did or not. Uh, but the combat rework, how they try to smooth it over was feeding the community a bunch of BS. Here's their five stated goals of the Mod 17 rework. Tell me if any of these are true, if they exist today. Improve scaling. Scaling should be seamless and so smooth that players don't need to focus on it. I have I have a scaled loadout because it performs much better than my normal loadout. Hmm. I guess it does. That one's kind of arguably, that one probably maybe kind of occurred. Easier to understand setup of rating leaves it so players aren't confused about ratings. I would argue that stats right now are more confusing than they've ever been in the history of this game. Uh, if you ask a player what's better, 7.5% outgoing damage or 7.5% accuracy, guess what they'll say? Yes, but guess what the people who work on builds will say? It depends. It depends on a shitload of things. A lot of very confusing things as well. I would argue that Reddit today just had another question. What do these percentages mean? They don't explain any of it. I would argue that nobody understands. Well, people do understand stats, but I would argue that it takes forever to understand them, and that a lot of us that think we know them still don't know them, possibly me included. This one's a complete joke. Item level more accurate. If I'm hosting MTOS and somebody says they want to join me and they have 87,000 item level and their DPS, I already know their damage is going to be very, very low. They are not optimized at all. I would argue that item level is one of the most misleading things in the game. They did the complete opposite of item levels being accurate. When we did our demo speed run like 5 days ago, we only had three players that were 80k. The other seven players were all 78 and 79k item level. 10,000 item level away from max item level. I would argue that item level is not at all whatsoever what they said would happen with their goal. Easier to gear up was goal number 4. Well, when Tom came out and I started getting good at it and I started getting top of the damage, getting first on the leaderboard, guess what my item level was? It's 23,000. So what's how could it be 23,000? We're 87,000 item level now. Well, here's why. Because you see this right here? We didn't have to have 10 mythic mounts to be maximized on our builds. We didn't have to have. I don't have one here because I don't have one summoned, I guess. You see right there, it says right there, companion bolster, 7%. It didn't have to be 100% like it has now if you want to be a maximized build. We didn't have 10 mythic companions. We didn't have mythic anything in the game. Uh, we didn't have 10 mythic or 15 mythic insignias. We didn't have 5 mythic collars. Mm, the only thing I think maybe has gotten easier is we only have these 9 enchants right here, plus combat, whatever. We have these 9 on this side. I believe before the last enchant rework over a year ago, that it was like 23 or 24. And believe it or not, those rank 15 enchantments that are worth are less powerful than the current rank 1 enchantments that cost 4,080 in the auction house. They were well over 3 million AD each in the first couple months they came out. So enchants were pretty expensive. 100 dragons for the chess piece. I would argue that the game's never been harder to build to maximize for endgame than it is now. I think they completely missed the boat on that stated goal. Easier to gear up. Yeah, if you have a credit card, maybe. Mm. And check this out. This one I laugh at. Their last one is keep options for creative, min-max builds. Has anybody listening to this video watched a build video in the last 6 months, maybe a year? Every single one of them are identical for all classes. Well, all DPS, that is. Why is that? Is that because nobody has any imagination? Is that because everybody's copying each other? Or is that because this game has narrowly pointed us to one path that is what we have figured out to be, so far? There might be something we don't know yet, but relatively speaking, almost every build is pretty identical. Yeah, okay, we might have a couple changes with the neck belt artifact set, maybe. They're very close together, though. I would argue that builds have never been more cookie cutter than they are now, and this completely is the opposite of combat, their stated goal of the combat rework. So, why I bring this up is this is eerily similar to what they're saying with the companion rework. Very similar. And I know there's a lot of salty players right now, and this one thing, if they mess it up, can possibly push more players out of the game. And I know there's a lot of players playing, but I think the pond's getting smaller, the water's drying up, and we can't have a game unless we have players. You know, um, I hopefully the companion rework is for the best, not the worst. We'll see. I would like to know if somebody knows why there's a companion rework and they understand their blog better than I do. Please comment below. And then, so I mentioned this earlier. I get invited to MTOS every single day, last boss. People get stuck there. It's a big DPS check. You need a lot of damage to get past that last boss. And every time I go in there, I don't say hi, I don't say anything because I'm busy. The first thing I do is I'm getting the basics out of the way. I inspect all five players or the other four players and see what artifacts they're wearing to see which one I should put on. And guess what I notice almost every single time in every last boss that I go to? Mind you, they've been in here for hours many of the times. 6 hours is a long time for a ring that's arguably not best in slot. That's a long time. So they're spending 6 hours in there, and I go in there, and I see this every time. There will be somebody on blades and somebody on knives. Those two artifacts, the debuffs do not stack. And I'll go in there. Just this last one, just yesterday, there was no Mythalar or Halaster's Blast Scepter. The two artifacts you almost have to have in this dungeon because they're the two most powerful artifacts that we have. And they're not using them. What? What? Well, no wonder there are players that are good enough not to use them, but if you've been in there for 6 hours, chances are your group's not good enough to not use them. You need those. And the thing is, here's what I think groups should do. Obviously, I'm probably wrong, but this might be ideal. You not need, you really want a Mythalar in there. It's a 15% debuff. The Mythalar is a DPS artifact, not a tank, not a healer, a DPS. And if you have a spellcaster in there, it's going to be used by a spellcaster, i.e., like a warlock or control wizard, because they benefit from the intelligence points. And a lot of people using the Mythalar artifact will be using the Mythalar set, so that way they can have two artifact sets going on. So if you don't have any spellcasters, then anybody can use it. But if you have a spellcaster in the group, they're the one using Mythalar. Then you got the wyvern, not the wyvern coated blades, the new blades artifact. I forget the dragonbone blades. That is not a healer artifact. That is not a tank artifact. That is a DPS artifact. Because not only does it have a debuff, it hits hard as hell. And you gotta hit the boss in order to activate that effect every second. And generally speaking, the healer and tank are not hitting as fast as the DPS are, or as often. So you kind of want the DPS on the blade set. Now this one, you really want a blast scepter in there. Uh, Generally speaking, the healer will be on the blast scepter. It can be the tank, or it can be another DPS, but generally, I find it best when a support uses it because now this one, This one people may disagree with, and I think they're probably right, but I like it. It's the Demogorgon artifact, and the deal with the Demogorgon artifact's reach is that when you cast it, it's not an immediate debuff. It's a debuff that builds over time. So if you cast it and then people pop their tunnel visions or toads or whatever right afterwards, they're not getting the full debuff. They have to wait, and a lot of players aren't experienced enough to know that. So you have to wait to use your big powers and your big hitting encounter before you do it. So, but what's good about the demo set is a lot of players, i.e., not the spellcasters, but the classes that benefit from strength, like the Guardian Fighters, the Barbarians, the HRs, the TRs. I don't know what bards are. I think they might be physical as well. So those classes, a lot of them are using the Demogorgon's artifact, and because they get 6 plus 6 strength from using the artifact set with, so you want to let one of them use it, and that leaves. So we got the blades, we got the scepter, we got the Mythlar, we got the demo, and that leaves one more, and it's going to be a 10%er. So generally speaking, the tank will go on a 10%er. And what a lot of them are using is the Black Dragon Mark. Not all of them have the Black Dragon mark. The reason why they prefer that one, it's a 10% debuff. It casts really fast and it has 6 more 100 item level than the other 10%ers. But you can use Lantern, you can use Heart of the Black Dragon, you can use Charm. I'm not a big fan of Charm. I don't think anybody is because it takes about a second to cast. And in that 1 second, bad stuff can happen where you need a move and then you cancel the effect and then you got to waste another second. And the last boss is a big fat DPS check. Every second helps. Every second matters, especially for the groups that are barely there. They're spending 6 hours in there on that last boss. Uh, I'm not saying those are the best artifacts. Those are the artifacts that I've seen the combo that I think works best. And when I go in and I sort the artifacts for the hoster, generally they don't mind. I'm not trying to take over their queue. I'm trying to get in and out as fast as I can so I can go do whatever I was doing before I got the PM because I don't have the keys for the chest. You only get one a day. So I'll say, hey, I'm not the queue lead, but this is what we should probably. This is we're missing a ton of damage, and I've just noticed that's been a trend in a lot of these last boss fights I've been going into. And then I think I talked about this, but I think this is. I wanted to specifically put this as my 12th point. When people were begging, I mean, constantly complaining about the Band of Air, and they wanted it nerfed so bad. Um, I would argue that the Band of Air was extremely overrated in group content. Um, we put up that like 6 minute crown run where nobody had the Band of Air, nobody had the rib cage. It's amazing what happens when players work together with non-optimized gear. Good stuff happens, and that's what we did. And the Band of Air, all it did was increase our run by a couple seconds. But what it really helped was when a player was new, maybe shouldn't be in that content yet, but we could use the Band of Air to help compensate for the lack of the damage that the newer player was doing. It made it so we could be more inclusive. Because that's what this game used to be. When everybody says this game used to be fun, guess what this game used to do? This game used to be you could take any 5 members from your guild, brand new, experience, whatever, and complete any content in the game. Because this game was built where everybody could contribute. If you're a brand new 1000 item level, whatever, you probably had group buffs for like 80%. So even though you weren't doing any damage and you didn't know what you're doing, as long as you buffed the main damage dealer in the group, you were contributing. And the game's gone away from that. It's either you're not gonna cut it. These 6 hour M tosses are happening because one player, maybe more, is not pulling their weight. And it's a shame because it makes the game force hosters to be picky. And the Band of Air helped prevented that. It kind of took us back to the golden days of this game where we could invite anybody, and that was okay because I was doing more than enough damage to pull your weight. But now without the Bennett error, now we got to pick through every single person. Uh, and we're just seeing all this crazy stuff looking for CW. It used to be if they were looking for like they would specifically say, "I want a Scourge Warlock, I want an HR," because they were 9 for 10 and they wanted that one class that could provide the, because you wanted like one of every class because everybody had their own unique buffs. So people were specifically looking for a certain class that provided buffs to the group that the other people weren't providing. Well, unless the class had stackable buffs, but that's for another day. And the Bandit Era really made this game a lot more fun, a lot more inclusive. Um, but we got away from that. Players begged for the game not to be that way, and I don't think what they realized what they were asking was hurting the new players, and that's a shame because we go back to the second thing I talked about players shooting ourselves in the foot, begging for nerfs, begging for the game to be worse when most of those requests are hurting the new players, and they're the lifeblood of this game, in my opinion. I know this was a long video. I know there will probably be a lot, maybe even most people will completely disagree with me. That's fine. I would really enjoy it if you were critical, and maybe you'll provide me insights that I never saw. That way, I could, if I do futures in the videos in the future, maybe I can be a little bit better educated. So please be critical if you don't agree or if any of my observations are off the mark. Stay classy, Neverwinter. See you soon.